I went to see the Canary Wharf station, and I just found that as a very inspiring building. And that building is just a perfect infrastructure project. That just the way the light comes in and how the structure is very rational but very expressive. And I said, this is where I want to work. Our designs are never final. Even during construction, we've changed projects. Norman got his pencil and he started changing things and correcting things and making suggestions. The identity is the concept of performance. Sometimes you have young people and they're sort of shy and they hang up a sketch. And, if we see something wonderful in that sketch and that idea is, it comes into the fold of the discussions. Foster and Partners are almost like a school of architecture. You don't come knowing the solution, but that the solution comes from dialogue, from being humble and from researching and interrogating and challenging ourselves continuously. So I find it's quite inspiring in the quest he has to, create beauty and quality and buildings that perform. Every project we start, we try to start as a blank page.
So Juan, hi.
Hi, Vladimir. Thank you.
Absolutely. So welcome to this exhibition, Out of Context. It's a show that presents projects by 7 architects from 7 different countries. Very different projects, very different programs, different size, materials.
So what was the guiding path, the unifying concept of why you joined all these 7 projects?
So what I was
Is there
trying
one?
to
Maybe there's not one.
There was so what I was trying to do is to show very different attitudes of architecture. In a way, it's a critique of what our current moment represents in the profession. There is a particular way of doing architecture. Everybody says that it's very diverse and very, all the opportunities you can explore, which I don't find true. I think architecture has become very prescriptive, very predictable. We know how to make a good building, so there is a certain bucket list that everybody goes through to execute all the points. It has to be. You have to use ecological materials. You have to perform certain sustainable features. A lot of architects prefer doing adaptive reuse. Nature is integrated into the work of architecture. So there are very few tricks that everybody goes through. They use timber, they try to stay away from concrete. So I don't find it very open. In fact, it's very formulaic. So I'm trying to find that, and I try to find examples around the world which are very different, very diverse. And I want to go through the entire process where the architect found ideas and what were the steps, what was the design process, what kind of questions they ask. And I tried to find very different ways of doing architecture and celebrate it. And I interviewed all the participants, and we, kind of back analyzed all the work. And I tried to ask questions outside of that particular project to figure out what makes each of those architects absolutely unique and special. So now I want to ask you some questions. First of all, if you could present yourself. What do you do, where you work, and what's your position, and what do you do here at WAF Miami?
Yes. Well, my name's Juan Frigerio. I'm a partner at Foster and Partners. This year is going to be 25 years that I've been with the practice. First, many years in London, and then I moved to Buenos Aires to open our office in Buenos Aires, which we looked at a number of projects and grew basically new markets for the practice in South America and in other regions as well. And now recently this year, I've been tasked with opening Foster and Partners Miami studio. And after a long and challenging process, we opened the studio in August. Anyways, we're building a team of very young, talented architects to, create really great work in collaboration and in, you know, together with mainly with our London studio and also with New York. So it's a very exciting moment.
And what do you present
needed to
here?
be here. Here I presented two projects. I presented the Transamerica Pyramid Tower, which is a renovation of a famous building. And I presented Alibaba headquarters in Shanghai, which is a completed office building. So yeah, in Transamerica we got commended. So it's you know, satisfying that at least we got that commendation.
So for this project in Shenzhen, you were the
In
head
Shanghai.
design in Shanghai. Sorry, you were
No, I wasn't. I wasn't involved, but unfortunately, the senior partners who were developing the projects, they were unable to come, so they asked me to present it for them. So, anyways, it was an honor because it's a really beautiful project, and you know, it's a quite a different office building, and you know, the client is very satisfied with it. So, it's easy to present something when you know the work is really very good quality. So.
I understand you participated in WAF's program before.
Yes, well, some years ago, it's not so. I was in WAF in Singapore. I presented at Buenos Aires City Hall there.
Oh yes, I actually, I think I mentioned that I've been to that.
Yeah, there was a really exciting moment then, and you know we were very proud of that building. Unfortunately, we didn't win it, but you know we got really good comments, and you know that project now is kind of become one of the architectural icons of Buenos Aires. It's in the tour guides and the architecture guides, in the open houses in Buenos Aires. It's kind of one of the most visited buildings, so it's another you know building that we're really proud of.
And what do you think about WAF as an architectural forum? If you could compare to many other biennales or forums of architecture, what advantage does it have? What attracts you to participate again and again?
Well, we like to. I mean, we always submit a lot of projects, and you know, I think the diversity of the awards and the different categories is attractive, and you know, we also like to listen to people's presentations, see what other people are doing, and learn from our colleagues. So you know, it's a very bubbly interface with other colleagues, and you know, all the socializing and networking around it, the dinners, the stands like this one that you have is wonderful. So it's a really good opportunity to show our work and to learn from other colleagues and to just have a horizontal dialogue with people who love architecture. So
Out of, I guess, a number of projects that you are personally working on right now at the office, which one would you pick that you know, where your heart is and what is it about? Where is it?
well, there's so many at the moment. I think we're doing a tower in Buenos Aires in a very special location because it's almost at the entrance of the harbor. Which is Córdoba en Alim, and it's a really special building with an offset core, triangular shape, and you know it's all about creating differentiations. All the floors are you know 33 floors. There's 24 variations of floor plates, and we have internal spaces, atriums. We have 7 very large terraces. So it was a building conceived before the pandemic, with you know outdoor experience, and almost the pandemic validated it. So that construction is progressing. And then we recently won in competition a tower in Asunción for Sudameris Bank, and that will probably start construction early next year. And it's quite beautiful because it's more about a garden and a courtyard, learning from the traditional architecture adapted to the climate, and then creating a destination with a tower. So those I could mention those two as very
What about the
nice.
tower in Buenos Aires? So, are you the head designer for
Yes.
that particular building?
Yes.
I wonder if this building is a kind of continuation. It's you know, kind of work in progress on you know, achieving you know, a modern office building. Is it a kind of part of a lineage of you know, progression of Foster design
Yes,
tower?
well, when we got it started,
the
we
exterior
never,
garden?
when every project we start, we try to start as a blank page.
Okay.
Not bring any preconceptions. And we try for the building to come out, of the different constraints.
You don't
and
take advantage of
performance.
what was done before as far as
Well, that's always in
in-house
our
work. Yeah, it's
in our genetics, but we try to start from a blank page. I mean, this building we never thought it was going to be a triangular building, but then when we started doing massing options, and typically for any project, we don't start with one idea, we just have brainstorm many ideas, and in that process, we sort of discovered that we had a very big building very close to it, so we said, let's try to make the aspect towards this big neighbor very small, and out of those pushing and pulling of the shape, we just realized that if we had a very small facade towards the neighbor and we had diagonal facades to the larger aspects, to the river and the city, and if we kind of pushed the core back to another neighbor, which that was less valuable in terms of the real estate value, then we had a building which worked like a glove on the side or like a tailor's suit, and just adapted perfectly to the site, the visuals, the big garden that we were creating in the background, and it kind of, with the neighboring towers, then it became sort of an array, and created this more larger space, which felt like an entrance into the harbor, into Puerto Madero. So, after many more, and we had physical models of all of these, we created this big model of all the harbor.
Have you done?
Well, for that one, there were 4 finalists.
Okay.
There were more, but the 4 final ones we tested, and we made models of all of them. And then we presented them all to the clients, and they saw the value of this particular option. So we had value in a number of ways in the urban fabric and creating a garden, and it was also tied to commercial value and making all the floor plates and all the commercial product very successful as well.
I wonder within the firm right now, who decides whether the scheme is finalized, and is it, it's approved. It's before even a client may see it.
We've had
Who puts the final type?
I mean, of course, the partners are kind of the drivers of design ideas, and we are the project architects and the design leaders. And then we have what we call the design board. So we have a forum with our most senior partners, and they review all the projects.
Different offices.
No, it's just kind of the senior leadership, and there we have, of course, Norman and Spencer DeGray, David Nelson.
So Norman is involved, and he was aware of this particular building.
Yes. Okay. So with the design board, they review all of these projects, all of the options, and then they give guidance and critique and suggestions and reference. So basically, all the projects go through the design.
Norman's comment when he saw your kind of final scheme?
Yeah, well, he didn't have any specific
okay, but
comments.
it's top. Did he say that?
No, he didn't say that.
So what was his suggestion?
Well, he was very satisfied with the massing, and he gave us some ideas.
Blasted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
for a recent one on Sudameris Tower, and we did the launch with Norman and our client for the bank in London when they announced it, and we had all these models, and Norman got his pencil and he started changing things and correcting things and making suggestions, and it kind of was,
wow, this is
he has to make some amendments. And even with the client there, we were just improving the design. So I would say our designs are never final. Even during construction, we've changed projects. So it's continuous until the building is completed. There's always the possibility of improving and refining, and as we go along the path from the concept into construction. And every project we do, we're involved in the construction supervisory phase as well, because we really care about projects being properly built and properly delivered, and we're always refining and improving and changing things, and as we go along. We're never complacent. We're always kind of demanding more of ourselves.
I wonder, how would you describe, poster identity?
Well, I think, and I'm not the first to say one, but I think the identity is the concept of performance. It's how a building performs against a series of parameters. And this is, functionality, structural, sustainability, and also beauty and inspiration. So, and within our wider teams, we have sustainability teams. We have engineers in house, and we review the projects, and everybody's sort of inputting into the refining, trying to find a building that's a performance. And we love beautiful expression, beautiful buildings, but we try that the shapes that we create have us or sustain in a performance, in an environmental or climatic or structural or functional or commercial, but that there's a performance that is underlies the final morphology, shapes, relationship that the building creates.
I wonder where you derive your ideas. Let's say if we continue speaking about this particular tower,
Yeah.
where the inspirations come from, and do they come from buildings or do they come from other fields, art, geometry?
Yeah, well, it varies in projects. It varies a lot. I think at least in the portfolio of buildings that we've done specifically for Buenos Aires, and Cordoba would be our third completed building. A lot has to do with the local technology and the constraints of what we can build there. So there, the main material that is used is is concrete. So we've really pushed in all our buildings the technology of concrete. So our first building, the Aleph, we use a plastic formwork to create very expressive shapes, which sort of referred, it was a residential project, so it referred to the traditional houses and, the vaulting of bricks and how we could create a language there in concrete, but using really special formworks. And then in City Hall, because the building was located in an industrial area of the city, we took advantage of planning which allowed deep plan buildings, and of the park we had to create a 100-meter facade onto one of the most beautiful parks, and the building became an industrial building. So it's an office building, but it's really a factory for production, and we use skylights and we profile the roof as you would in a factory to let daylight in and shed water. So it was a rationale of adapting the building to the history of the place. And then in this last one in Cordoba, is the first project that's using high strength concrete, because we wanted to lift the building off the ground and have the garden pass under it, and we wanted to make the building hover a bit and create these huge large terraces. So there we inclined columns so that those terraces would always be open, and just to create a particular profile. So there's a number of inspirations, and technology and constructability also comes into the discussion many times.
I want to ask you about the overall production by Foster and Partners. If you
Yeah.
look back, many years back, I wonder if you have any particular favorite buildings that you visited personally and
Yeah.
really enjoyed that.
Well, when I came to London in 2000, and I was looking for work, and I had several offers from several offices.
Started.
Yeah, before I started. So, and I didn't know where to go and work, because they were all quite attractive companies and all very different. So I said, I'm gonna go and see a building by each one, and I went to see the Canary Wharf station, and I just found that as a very inspiring building. And that building is just a perfect infrastructure project. That just the way the light comes in and how the structure is very rational but very expressive. And I said, this is where I want to work. So that building was very important for me. And then, well, I've referred to Buenos Aires City Hall, and City Hall was inaugurated in 2015, and it was almost 40 years from the opening of Willis Faber and Dumas, which was 1975 approximately, and they were both office buildings. They were both these plans, and both of them had ideas of sustainability. So I did a talk relating both buildings. So 40 years apart, both buildings had sort of the same genetic, the same way of thinking of architecture, of how you experience a building, how the buildings almost become landscapes for their inhabitants as you move around, when you can design a collection of very complementary and differentiated space making. So Willis Faber was also, a building that I love quite a lot.
You've been working at Foster's and Partners for
25 years.
25 years.
25 years. Yeah.
Would you recommend young architects to, you know, enter the
Yes, of course. Yeah, I've just hired a number of young architects and
and you think
building a really
they
exciting
can
team.
they can expect to build a meaningful career within one firm?
Well, what I always tell people and young people is that Foster and Partners are almost like a school of architecture. And even though we have senior people like myself who give design direction, the design process is very horizontal. So everybody really contributes from the design early on, and everybody can show the ideas, and we do a lot of pinups like you would in university,
Cool.
at school. And I've been a professor many years now. I stopped teaching, but we have pinups of the project like it was a design crit, a design charrette, and we sometimes you have young people and they're sort of shy, and then they hang up a sketch, and if we see something wonderful in that sketch and that idea is it comes into the fold of the discussion. So it's a very horizontal, iterative design process where what comes at the end is that the ideas have to hold up in their value. It doesn't matter who created the idea. Is what matters is that the idea can stand up to interrogation, criticism, by different disciplines, different callings. So it's a process that goes filtering and iterating until the final product is something that's a very robust, strong idea which responds in a number of different ways to the design problem that we're facing. So I think that's very formative for young people. It's also very formative because you have to let go. You can't hold on to you have to know how to let go, because what you did today, maybe tomorrow just gets cast aside. So it's a really interesting and quite dynamic and challenging process. But I think it leads to good architecture, and it leads to strong individuals as well. Because there's a lot of rationality in the design. It's not, hey, I like this idea, so we're going to develop that. It just doesn't work like that inside Foster's. Because it's going to get challenged and it's going to get refined, and sometimes it's just going to be throw out and something better is going to come. So that's kind of a really good learning process for architecture and for life.
I imagine that after observing Norman Foster in person, after so many years, you've probably had many opportunities, many chances to see him at work on design problems. I wonder what stands out, what qualities stand out, and what do you find quite exemplary in his approach to architecture?
Well, I think this performer approach really comes from him, and also the continuous review, the continuous challenging. He always, there's nothing fable. It's always getting challenged, and there's this willingness to find better and better solutions. And he's very driven in that way. And it's just you never stop designing. Even as I was saying, even during construction, things can change, and so I find it's quite inspiring, and the quest he has to create beauty and quality and buildings that perform.
And finally, I want to ask you, what would you recommend to a young architect today?
Well, if you mentioned Norman, a couple of years ago, he gave a very inspiring talk to us, and his message was stay a student.
Oh, yeah.
And that really, I think, clinged to myself and to many other people, is that idea that you never start learning, and that you have to have an ingenuity, a naivety, that you don't need to think that you know the solutions for problems, and that you approach problems always with an open mind and with ingenuity, with humility, and through hard work and interrogation and curiosity, that there is a process that gets started there, and that you always stay a student, you stay curious, and you always have to be open to learn from colleagues, from clients, and that you don't come knowing the solution, but that the solution comes from dialogue, from being humble, and from researching and interrogating and challenging ourselves continuously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.